This is Total Retail Tech Insights.
The content retail executives need to optimize their use of technology throughout their organizations.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of Total Retail Tech Insights. I'm Joe Keenan, Editor-in-Chief of Total Retail, and I am joined on today's episode by John Lunn, who is the founder and CEO of Gr4vy. So thanks you for joining me today, John.
Thank you for having me.
So to get us started, can you tell our audience a little bit about yourself and your professional background?
Sure. So as you said, I'm John Lunn, the CEO of Gr4vy. Professionally, I've been in payments and fintech since feels like the beginning of time. So I started at my first fintech company back in 1997, which was a payments company called CyberSource, probably the first internet payments company, and took that through dot-com boom, dot-com crash, through to selling it to Visa a number of years later for an awful lot of money. From that point onwards, I went to start another company called Passmark Security, where we were basically working in banking security space. That got sold to RSA. And then from there, I was busy setting up another company at the time. Got a phone call from PayPal asking me to join. Was not that keen on joining the company, thinking it was a big US corporate, but essentially it told me to meet the other three people. So I think I was employee 4 in PayPal UK, nearly 16 years ago now, actually, in very early days. So throughout that, I early days of introducing PayPal to the space of retail, trying to get those first merchants on board, and then from there growing it. I talked to our CEO in the time and had a conversation with him about buying another payment company, and that's when we bought Braintree. Part of the deal was if I buy it, you're going over there, John. So I then was sent over to Braintree to work for Bill over there and looked after developer and startup relations for a number of years. And then when the new CEO came in, he quickly realized that we were doing a lot with startups, but perhaps we should be investing. So I was very early in that idea and starting PayPal Ventures over there. So for the last 5 years before I started Gr4vy, I was actually on the other side of the table investing in fintechs. I left PayPal last year and started Gr4vy because I missed building companies.
Yeah, so that's a perfect lead in to getting us to where we're at today. And your creation, I mentioned that you're the founder and you started Gr4vy. So tell us a little bit about your inspiration, the drive to start the company.
Yeah, so my inspiration is born out of pure frustration, really. I kept on having the same conversation over and over again with retailers around the world. The conversation would go along the lines of, you should add payment company, i.e. PayPal. And they'd be like, yes, we would love to add that. We will do that. It's going to take me 8 months, or it's going to take me 2 years. And I kept on thinking, why would it take so long to do that? It's like 3 lines of code. Why does it take so long to add that into your payment infrastructure? And when I was investing in these companies with some amazing technologies that would have huge advantages to retail, the same thing would happen. It'd be like, yes, it's going to take us 2 years to do this, or it's going to take us this amount of time to do this. And it kind of galvanized it to me. I was speaking to a retailer who wanted to expand to South America. And they told me that their parent had quoted them, I think it was 13 months and $8 million per payment type they needed to go into that region. I'm like, this is crazy. What is going on here? And it turns out that essentially, pretty much every retailer in the world has a payments team. And that payments team starts as one individual right at the beginning who perhaps does an integration to their first PSP, say it's a Stripe or a Braintree or someone else. And then 6 months later, you need something else. So you might need a PayPal, you might need a buy now, pay later provider. And then 6 months later, you need another one. And then suddenly you go international, go into a different country where they require other forms of payments. And essentially what happens in almost all retailers is, to deal with that, the payments team gets bigger, and it gets bigger, and custom code is written to deal with that situation until you get to a large retailer where you have a huge payments team basically managing all of these pipes and building plumbing. And it was apparent to me that everybody was doing this independently. So everyone is essentially building exactly the same product independently. And by the time you got to a decent size, then it became a problem. And over 50% of all retailers in North America have 2 or more PSPs. And essentially, why would everyone build the same custom code? There's a gap in the market here, and the gap is a tool that does exactly that, allows a retailer to be flexible, add, move, change, and basically move with the times when it comes to payments without engineering debt, without huge amount of people working on this and really long roadmaps. And that's what we're looking to solve here at Gr4vy.
Yeah, so that's, you mentioned that you started Gr4vy out of this frustration that you were having, and which leads me to talk about how Gr4vy is addressing that frustration, those conversations you were having with the retailers, this length of time that was going to be needed for, as you said, 3 lines of code. Tell us a little bit about how Gr4vy addresses that challenge, or maybe it was even a perceived challenge that retailers had.
Yeah, so we've built a tool essentially, and we built a tool that allows a product manager or a person in the finance team to manage and control and change and add and do all the stuff they want to do with payments without needing an engineer to do that. So the way we built that is we've essentially built a cloud infrastructure company. We spin you up an instance of Gr4vy in the cloud that connects to the systems that you have today. So that's a core differentiator between us and anyone else, is we fit into what you have now. And that cloud basically gives you a no-code layer, which is basically a visual layer, click and drag, allows you as a product manager to go in and say, okay, I want to add a new payment company, and do that in 3 clicks, add that into your infrastructure, and then build rules around that on how you're going to manage payments to that payment company. So on the back end, you might have rules such as, if card is coming from Brazil, then send it to eBanks. If card is coming from Europe, maybe send it to Adyen. But even more so, you can start to build rules around the front end. So the classic is a Japanese checkout where you have like 1,000 different checkout options. So we allow you as a retailer to go in and say, I want to configure it so for this client buying this product at this time, these payment options will be available to them. And that means you can really customize your checkout in an individual level for your client and give you a much higher chance of having them check out and make that payment.
From your examples there, are you finding that the majority of clients that are, or retailers that are looking to Gr4vy for help, are they cross-border? Is that a growing part of their business and they need a payment solution such as what Gr4vy can offer?
Well, cross-border is definitely a catalyst. So, I mean, the minute you leave your home territory and we're live in Europe and in North America, but the minute you go to a different territory, and in Europe it's normally your neighboring country, in America it's a different continent, is you suddenly hit this problem full on, because outside North America, credit cards are only one way that people like to pay. And yeah, it's particular countries, and many of them, where they have their own way of wanting to pay. And that's not something most North American retailers are used to or able to handle. So that is definitely a catalyst for us. But we do have many, conversations in North America where retailers are just simply looking to add redundancy, trying to deal with some of the challenges coming with payments around 3D Secure and other things like, CIT and MIT, or they're just simply looking to add another payment provider, or more importantly now in North America, buy now, pay later is definitely becoming a hot subject.
So that leads into a next conversation, John. You just mentioned buy now, pay later. So I want to kind of dig into that a little bit. So there's been a lot of talk and a lot written, a lot said about some of the new and upcoming payment methods that retailers are beginning to offer, buy now, pay later being one example, others such as open banking, direct payments. Can you tell us a little bit about kind of what you see as the implications around this new trend for both e-commerce and retailers in general?
Yeah, I mean, so on a consumer and a retail implication level, on the positive side, like, this is great, enabling more payment options, allowing your consumers to pay in the way that they want to pay is going to do nothing but increase your sales, right? So enabling people to pay in 4 installments, allowing people that perhaps don't have bank accounts and credit cards to make payments, or simply, I'm willing to do that. Opening that up to consumers is great for a retailer, and should be a priority and should be something retailers are looking to do. On the other side of the coin, they are different. They don't work exactly the same way as traditional payment types, especially e-commerce. So they don't necessarily work in the same way that a credit card would, have an authorization and a capture and all that kind of deal. Some of these payment types are very offline. And so they are, essentially you're depending on a consumer to go and make a payment in their local convenience store, or, go to their bank, or do something that, doesn't necessarily involve waiting on with a checkout open and saying thank you for your order. So they are different, and they do require different things, and therefore that's an opportunity for us at Gr4vy, because we're able to basically deal with that UI, deal with the differences for you, and then reconcile it all into central reporting that fit into, again, what you have today. But it is a challenge. I mean, some of the new payment types that are coming, they involve displaying QR codes, they involve using cell phones to authenticate. And with open banking, you are, sent off somewhere else for a bit to authenticate yourself biometrically on your phone. And, that goes back to the retailer. So look, as a retailer, opportunity is huge. If you try to do this yourselves, it's going to take time, particularly if you're working with a limited, overstretched payments team in-house. And what we do at Gr4vy is we do that work for you. That allows you to actually try these new things. And I've had many conversations with retailers who've said things to me such as, what, I'd really like to see what happens if we offer something like Bitcoin on our website, but I can't do that because, it's an 18-month project and I can't take that risk. And what we're trying to do with Gr4vy is make it so easy that it's a quick decision. You can deploy it to like 5% of your customers, see how it goes. If it works well, then keep on going. If it doesn't work, switch it off. It's not really cost you anything.
Yeah, that speed to market. To your point, you could test it with a smaller segment of your audience, and then if you're seeing the results that you hope, roll it out to continue to increase the percentage of the audience that is available to. You mentioned the opportunity here for retailers, John. I want to follow up on that a little bit in terms of why it is important that retailers are offering these new payment methods in terms of market opportunity, so gaining market share and their customers. I would imagine this is kind of a gateway to get some customer acquisition in terms of, some first-time customers that might not have shopped with your brand, leveraging tools such as buy now, pay later, open banking, direct payments. Tell us a little about the impact that it can have on customer acquisition and growing market share as well.
Yeah, so I mean, look, if you have people coming to your website who are unable to check out, then frankly, you've lost them as customers. So opening these other payment types, one, at least give you the opportunity to address them at customers. But let's use buy now, pay later as a good example. So buy now, pay later, people, I talked to some retailers, say, yes, we've added buy now, pay later. And usually they've added one buy now, pay later provider, which is great. But they're not all the same, and they all have different demographics. So, certain ones have very clear demographics of, like, for example, women under 30. There's one of them that particularly attracts women under 30. There's buy now, pay later providers that really appeal to, Gen Z. Other ones that are perhaps appeal to different user groups. So, configuring and providing in the simplest case, the buy now, pay later option that your customer likes or that customer is used to using is going to increase their chances of checking out a huge amount. And I think then also, for someone who perhaps is maxed out on their credit card or etc., having the option to pay with your bank account for something you need, again, opens up that chance of giving the consumer the ability to check out. I mean, there's lots of studies around, millennials and Venmo, for example, and them liking Venmo and not getting credit cards and not having those checkout options on your website is basically, it's not about optimizing, it's basically just opening the door, because otherwise they can't come in.
Yeah. It's almost becoming just standard. What's expected too. It's not just it's not looked at as perceived as a bonus, but it's really an expectation for the consumer, or it's getting to that point. So we talked about the benefits then, potential benefits in terms of market share, customer acquisition. let's address a little bit about the challenges that retailers face, or real or perceived, when they're taking on new payment methods, and why a solution such as Gr4vy can help to address those challenges.
Well, firstly, I mean, your checkout as a retailer is, the most important page almost of your entire e-commerce site, right? That's the bit where, it comes down to it. Are they going to pay for the product? So anything that messes with that checkout can significantly decrease the chances of a consumer shopping. I mean, I've seen stats such as every additional page you add to checkout takes out 16% of your shoppers. So, when you're doing one of these new and interesting checkout options, so something like open banking, which requires a QR code, right? You're having your engineers, your in-house web team, building the UI that fits with that is a significant amount of work. But actually on the background, it's not just about taking the payment. That has got to talk to your fulfillment system. That's got to talk to your accounting system, etc. And it's got to be tracked through from beginning to end. And it is more than likely that the majority of retailers' systems are built around accepting credit cards, which have a very simple auth, capture, settle process. That is not the same with some of these other payment types. That's not the same with the risk that runs on these other payment types. So there is a certain amount of adaptation. If you do this yourself, essentially, it's going to take you quite a lot of time, because you're going to have to take this new paradigm and adapt it to your system, or adapt your system to it, which is more likely. And then when you're done with that, you start on the next one. And that's why we see these sort of 8, 9, 2-year roadmaps for adding simple payment types. It's not really the just adding the payment type. Is what happens to that money and how does it flow through your system that you have today. And so what we've done with Gr4vy is we've normalized that. So essentially we do the UI for you if you want us to. We give you the components you can plug into your checkout so that you can accept that payment type without needing your web engineers, etc., to build that. And then on the back end, we've consolidated the reporting and the way that sends you into one format. So whether it's open banking, PayPal, or credit cards, or anything else, it's very easy for your accounts team to see who's paid you for what and when. And then, we made it incredibly easy to add it without creating that engineering or that technical debt by doing it. So we've tried to take that complexity away for you. You integrate once with Gr4vy, and then you don't need to integrate again after that. And then we take that complexity away and give it to you in the format that you need, and allows a non-technical person to make those changes.
Yeah, so kind of in the same vein, John, removing that technical debt and that complexity, as you mentioned, Gr4vy's cloud native platform, orchestration platform, is helping retailers to kind of take on these new payment methods. Tell us a little bit about the cloud native platform, and what's the importance of leveraging the cloud to solve for these payment issues.
Yeah, so there's a lot of big advantages to building infrastructure as a service, and that's really what we've done on top of the cloud. Most retailers are going through the process of what's being called digitalization, which is moving their own infrastructure out of legacy data centers into the cloud, and therefore any solution out there needs to be lock stock with the main trend in digitalization. So that's the first part of it. But secondly, being in the cloud allows us to deploy infrastructure specifically for that merchant. So we spin up an instance of Gr4vy for the retailer, and that instance of Gr4vy is not shared with anyone else, and it can be deployed wherever the retailer requires it to be deployed. So we can deploy in data centers all around the world. And that gets super interesting when it comes to one of the biggest trends that's happening now, which is around data residency. So data residency is becoming more prominent. We've already had like the kickoffs of GDPR in Europe, in Asia, and other parts of the world. There's other rules coming in. I mean, currently in India, payment data is not allowed to leave India. So by having a cloud native platform, we're able to spin up edge versions of Gr4vy in local data centers. So for example, if you want to accept payments in India, we can spin you up a version of Gr4vy in an Indian data center connected to Indian payment types where that payment data never leaves India, but that can talk back to your main instance of Gr4vy, which could be in North America. It also gives you the ability to burst up and down cloud sizes. So, if you're a merchant or retailer selling something like tickets, so every year there might be a big event like a festival. The wheels fall off. You need a huge amount of infrastructure to deal with that, like high volume and high cadence of volume coming in. With Gr4vy, we can literally, as a cloud platform, we can increase the number of processors, database connections, all that technical stuff to allow you to deal with that event for, say, 24 hours. And when it's done, we can shrink it back down, which means you as a retailer are not going to need that infrastructure when it comes to payments, sitting around doing nothing for the rest of the year when you're not selling tickets for a festival. So it gives us all of that flexibility. And I think any retailer who's going through digitalization will see the flexibility you get from the cloud. And we've basically taken all those advantages and created them in the payment space so that you really have a very, very flexible infrastructure solution.
For that flexibility that you talked about, John, in the case of a retailer, and use that example around the, if it's a festival, it's seasonal events too. Is that something that you're seeing retail clients that they need to scale up their infrastructure for certain times, whether it be, end of year holiday sales, or maybe, something else in terms of a seasonal event, and then they can scale down when they don't need that infrastructure?
Exactly, and the way that we price as a company is on usage. It's not on, we don't spin you up infrastructure that sits there doing nothing for a year. We charge you for the usage of the infrastructure for a period of time. So you do have holiday season coming. You have those very busy days like Cyber Friday and Black Monday, etc. And we're able to scale up your payment infrastructure for those events and then shrink them down straight afterwards. So you're not paying for it when you don't need it.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And then lastly, for retailers that are looking into payments orchestration and potentially taking on new payment methods, what could you tell, or how best can they get in touch with Gr4vy, and how can they learn more about the company?
Well, the first thing is please go to gr4vy.com on our website, where it's Gr4vy with a 4 instead of the A, and click on the link. There's a contact us section. You can book a demo and get in touch with us. We're happy to sit there. And just simply, if you've got a question about payments, please contact us. We've all been in payments for a long time. We've seen this, we've done that, and we're very happy to help and explain how orchestration can really help you.
Yeah, certainly an expert in the payment space. So I want to take the opportunity to thank John Lunn, again, who is the founder and CEO of cloud payment orchestration platform Gr4vy, for joining us on today's episode of Total Retail Tech Insights. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks for listening. For more information on this podcast, please check out our podcast channel page at mytotalretail.com/podcast for show notes. Tech Insights is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify. Make sure to subscribe on our podcast channel page as well. If you've enjoyed this episode, please take a few moments to rate and review this podcast. Thanks, and until next time, this has been Total Retail Tech Insights.